Jeff. We have one more speaker slated to speak, and then we're going to have a PowerPoint presentation, still yet, from Paley Defense Fund folks. And then we're going to break out into the work groups and come up with our questions for County Council. But our next speaker is Jim Albertini with Malu Aina. He's going to speak to us about nonviolent action. Thank you, Jim.
Aloha kako. Good to see all of you here tonight. Many of you I haven't seen in years. Bob Patrici asked me to come to speak a little bit about nonviolent action and some of the history. So I dug through the old files. I found a few relics. One is the cover of Time magazine, not only the national edition, but the international edition of April 23rd, 1990. Puna is on the cover of the International Time magazine, and it was over geothermal. Because this talked about the action up in the rainforest, where probably the largest action of nonviolent civil disobedience in the history of Hawaii took place. It was a strong statement on the sacredness of Pele, the Native Hawaiian spirituality, and the sacredness of the rainforest, preserving the earth. And I think that one day over 160 people were taken into custody. And over the course of several years, hundreds of people were arrested. The courts were so jammed up that the state was appointing per diem judges, and they were conducting trials in the locker room of the K.L. Armory. But I think the nonviolent action of that nature was the turning point up here in the forest that stopped what were plans for a 500 megawatt geothermal project then to export energy by an undersea cable to Oahu. Well, here we are, 22 years later, and Governor Abercrombie now is talking about 1,000 megawatts of geothermal to be exported by another undersea cable. Now, I hope that the normal channels of redress can be successful in nipping this in the bud. But I have my doubts. I think again we'll have to turn to the symphony that's right here in this room. The symphony that's required for social change when we're dealing with entrenched injustices. Martin Luther King was a great inspiration in my life. He said, social change is like a musical symphony. It takes many people playing many instruments to create the symphony. And all the different aspects that were mentioned here tonight, laymaking around the county building, attending hearings, all type of things, monitoring the community's energy has to be tapped fully to create this symphony of social change. But in this musical symphony, there's the first fiddle, which is a key. And I think in nonviolent social change, that first fiddle is nonviolent civil disobedience. When the doors to the public are locked tight from within the system, the people have no option but to move to nonviolent civil disobedience. And I think unless the powers that be listen to the people, we're going to have to move in that direction again. I hope we don't. I hope we don't. I try to speak from experience. I've spent nearly 2 years in prison for nonviolent resistance. I learned a very important lesson of nonviolence 44 years ago. When I was picketing a draft board, I learned the lesson never to make a picket sign out of something you won't want to be beaten over the head with. Because we were attacked by a group of drunken rednecks in a bar nearby the draft board. That's another thing, know your terrain. So I've learned a lot in 44 years since then. In fact, another relic dug out of the files today was a handbook for nonviolent action that we prepared for the rainforest action. Rainforest. And in here is a code of conduct, a nonviolent discipline. You know, with nonviolent action, I think a basic premise is you treat everyone with aloha. We have no enemies. We may have opponents, but we have no enemies. And I think that's very crucial to this. So in our dealings 22 years ago, we met with the police ahead of time, said, this is what we're going to do. We ended up having about twice as many people as we thought we would, but this is what we're going to do. Everything's out front. No curveballs. You know? And that's, I think, important. That for everybody, if we're trying to build a society that's based on respect, we have to live with respect toward everyone. And for me, the fundamental issue is geothermal. I mean, all the health issues are very real. But the fundamental issue is respect for the host culture of this place. If you ask any resident or even visitor to Hawaii, who is Pele? They will answer that. Pele is the goddess of the volcano. Pele is a deity. Well, you don't drill into the goddess of the volcano. You don't drill the deity. And if we stop there will be no health effects for the people. Because the health effects are when you're drilling at the Pele. So if we respect Pele, if we stand with the Pele Defense Fund, that's the best thing for our health and safety. Aloha.